Hi, I'm Jaye with Wilcox, and today we're going to talk about the RAPTAR Xe, the Rapid Targeting and Ranging Module Enhanced. For nearly 10 years, the Wilcox RAPTAR S has set the industry standard for laser rangefinders with applied ballistic solutions. The RAPTAR Xe continues this tradition with enhanced features including VCSEL laser technology and improved ranging capabilities, as well as a smaller, lighter configuration capable of meeting the challenges of the most demanding missions. When the RAPTAR Xe arrives, it's going to come to you in a box that's in a slipcase as well as shrink wrapped. The final measure that we've taken to ensure that you have an authentic Wilcox product is the hologram that's on the side of the box. All right, let's get this box open and take a look and see what's inside. When we open the box, the first thing that we'll find is the product card. The product card is going to list the feature highlights of the unit as well as a QR code. This QR code will take you to the Wilcox website where you can download quick reference material as well as the owner's manual. Next in the box is going to be the Xe Toolkit. The Xe Toolkit features equipment for cleaning, maintaining, and mounting your RAPTAR Xe. And then finally we have the RAPTAR Xe in its carrying pouch. Once you open the toolkit, you'll find included within is the lens pen, the cleaning cloth, as well as the Xe tool. The Xe tool is going to facilitate mounting the unit, as well as removing the blue lockout screw. The carrying pouch has been sealed with this tag. This tag is going to include the serial number of the unit itself, as well as a QR code. As we open up the carrying pouch, included in the front pocket are going to be our accessories. First up, we have the Ergocto 3-button pressure pad. And then following that, we have the connector cap. And then finally, some of our mounting accessories. Included are Velcro and zip ties for cable management. Now let's take a look at the RAPTAR Xe. Out of the carrying pouch, the RAPTAR Xe is going to have this protective cover over the battery cap. This protective covering prevents damage to the screen during shipment. Optional mounting accessories for the RAPTAR Xe include the Picatinny rail adapter. This is going to give you additional options for where you're going to mount your Ergocto 3-button pressure pad. Wilcox also offers a dual cable pressure pad. This can allow you to interface with the unit and operate with a white light device. Now let's go over some of the features of the RAPTAR Xe. In addition to the laser rangefinder and onboard ballistic computer, the RAPTAR Xe features a visible laser for bore sight, an IR pointer, and an IR illuminator. The IR pointer powers up to 30 milliwatts, the IR illuminator 90 milliwatts. In low reflectivity, the RAPTAR Xe can range a man-sized target at 2,000 meters. For a larger NATO-sized target, it can range up to 3,000 meters. Starting with the optical bench up front, we're going to peel back the laser safety cover, and that's going to expose our laser rangefinder receiver, our variable divergence illuminator, our IR pointer, and then our visible laser. Continuing on with the unit, here we have the up, down, select, as well as range buttons. Following that, we have our selector switch, which is going to determine the mode of operation that the unit is in. Next to the selector switch, we have our blue lockout screw. The blue lockout screw is going to prevent accidental operation of high-powered lasers during training. On the top of the unit, you're going to see the elevation adjuster and then on the side the windage. You only need to set 1-0 for your co-aligned optical bench. On the side of the unit, there's also this label. This label features the serial number and part number for your unit. On the other side of the unit, there's the variable divergence illuminator wheel. This is going to allow you to control the divergence of the infrared illuminator from 20 mrad to 105 mrad. Next, we have the port for your Ergocto 3-button pressure pad, your battery compartment, and then finally the screen of the unit, which is going to display all menu options and configurations. If the 3-button pressure pad is not in use, you can seal off the connection port with the included connector cap. The RAPTAR Xe takes one CR123 battery to operate. When we place the battery in the unit, we're going to place it positive terminal down towards the front of the unit. On the bottom of the Raptor XE are the Picatinny rail grabbers. This also includes a tie-down loop. In addition to providing ranges and corrections, the Raptor XE also has an environmental sensor. This sensor is capable of reading environmental data with the exception of the wind. Now we'll talk about the function modes and operation of the Raptor XE. The first thing that we're going to do is remove the blue lockout screw. And then we're going to insert it in the storage port. With the blue lockout screw stored, we're going to be able to cycle through all modes of the Raptor XE. As the mode selection switch is depressed down or towards the user, it's going to cycle through our visible lasers. First, we'll hit the visible low laser for boreside operations. Following that, we have the high-powered visible laser. As the mode selector switch is moved up and away from the user, the first option is the menu. That's going to allow us to program our Raptor XE based on the required mission set. Following that, we have the range only. That's going to allow us to range a target, but it won't activate any of the lasers. Following that, we have our aiming low function. The aiming low function is going to allow us to fire our low-powered infrared pointing laser. The dual low setting is going to allow us to enable our infrared illuminator and infrared pointer at the same time in low power. With the blue lockout screw removed, we're able to access aiming high power. This is going to fire our high-powered infrared aiming laser. After that, we have our infrared high-powered illuminator. The infrared high-power illuminator features a variable divergence. And then the final setting is going to be dual high. The dual high-powered mode is going to allow us to activate our infrared high-powered aiming laser and infrared high-powered illuminator. When we go to the range feature using the mode selector switch, that's going to bring us to the range function of the unit. This won't allow us to enable any of the lasers for the unit. It'll provide the range and corrections only. We'll remove the laser safety cover and we'll select a target to range. Once we do so, we're going to use the middle button. The middle button allows us to select a menu feature as well as activate the range. If we tap the button, it'll provide a quick range to target as well as our corrections. However, if we hold the button for approximately 3 seconds, it'll provide a precise range and corrections. In order to activate the laser, what I'm going to do is set the selector switch to the desired laser function. In this case, I've selected visible low laser. Once I've done that, I'm going to hit the top button. If I hit it once, that laser will fire as long as I've held that button down. However, once I remove my finger, laser will deactivate. In order to get the laser to persist, what I'm going to do is double tap. In order to deactivate the laser, I'll press it once more. Laser activation can also be tracked on the menu screen of the unit. If you notice, when I hold this down, it's going to highlight ALV. That's aiming laser visible. When I remove my finger, it'll no longer be highlighted. However, when I double tap, it'll remain highlighted as the unit is currently firing the laser. One of the features of the Raptor XE is the ability to adjust the brightness of the laser on the fly. For the low power, the increments are going to start at 4 and work their way down to 0. For the high-powered increments, they're going to start at 9 and then they'll work their way down to 0. Even when the 0 power level has been selected, the laser is still going to register. In order to adjust the power level, what I'm going to do is hit the down arrow. I'll move the down arrow to highlight the selected laser, in this case ALV, and then once I've selected it with the center fire button, I'm going to dial the power down. If I'd like to step the power up, I'm going to make the same selection process. Once I've made that selection, it's going to revert back to whatever function the unit was on. In this case, because we're on aiming low visible laser, it's going to return us to our ranging function. As we cycle through the menu functions on the Raptor XE, we're going to use the up and down buttons to toggle our options, and then the middle button is going to act as our select button. With the mode selector switch on M for the main menu, the first option that we have is ballistics. Once we cycle into ballistics, the first available submenu is going to be gun select. This will allow us to input up to 30 different guns into the Raptor Xe. After that, we have our environment data. The environment data is going to give us our last reading, as well as be able to manually adjust those readings. Following that, we have our target data, which is also going to register our last ranged target and manually adjust them. The options menu is going to select our input and output data points. We can select English, mixed, or metric for our input, and then output is going to be mils, inches, or MOA. The Manage Guns submenu is going to allow us to send and receive gun data from a successfully paired compatible device, such as a Kestrel. The next submenu is going to be for our settings. The battery option is going to tell us the remaining power level of our battery. With brightness selected, we're able to manually adjust the brightness levels of the display screen. We have 8 available brightness levels, as well as the options to set it to persist or default. If auto is selected, the light sensor located in the laser window of the unit is going to automatically adjust the brightness based on ambient light levels. The persist setting is going to lock in the user selected brightness when the unit is powered off and turned back on. The laser blink option is going to allow us to select from 6 available blink patterns for user or target identification. The range gate function is going to allow us to adjust the range gate. When set, it won't range anything within that gate, and it's available up to 1,000 meters in 10-meter increments. Ballistics is going to allow you to change your display to read the full ballistic solution or the range only. Bluetooth will allow you to enable or disable the Bluetooth function of your Raptor Xe. When enabled, it's going to read with a B above the battery power level indicator. When paired with a Kestrel, it will read with a K to indicate Kestrel. Compass Cal is going to allow you to perform the compass calibration. The compass calibration is a necessary function of the Raptor Xe when mounted on a rifle. Display direction is going to allow you to orient the display screen depending on the mounted position of the Raptor Xe. You can select left, top, or right. The screensaver is going to time out the display screen of the Raptor Xe when not in operation. The default setting is off. However, should you choose, you can select the timeout from 1.5 to 10 seconds in half-second increments. The self-test is going to allow the Raptor Xe to perform an onboard self-assessment to ensure that it's functioning correctly. Set Defaults is going to restore the unit to its factory settings. This means that it's going to wipe out all user input data. The event log is going to track any system errors that happen during operation. About is going to provide the firmware version, hardware configuration, part number, and serial number of the unit. The depot menu is going to allow you to enable or disable 3.3 volts of power out of the remote port to integrated devices and will be used for future upgrades. And finally, Exit is going to allow you to return to the main menu. Now we're going to go over the mounting procedures for the Raptor Xe. We'll front load the unit, get it seated on the diving board, and slide it forward. Then, you'll tighten the front thumb screw first. Once those thumb screws are hand tight, we're going to use the included XE tool to torque them down to 30 inch-pounds. Once we have the Raptor Xe mounted, the next thing that we're going to do is connect it to the 3-button pressure pad. First, we're going to remove the connector cap, and then we're going to take the mating end of our pressure pad. And once it's lined up correctly, we're going to apply forward pressure and lock it in. Once the pressure pad's locked in, what we're going to do is take the included Velcro to affix the 3-button pressure pad wherever we're comfortable. We can use the included zip ties for cable management. When we remove the pressure pad, we're going to make sure that we pull the locking collar back before we attempt to remove the cable. One of the optional accessories for the Raptor Xe is going to be your Picatinny rail adapter. This Picatinny rail adapter comes with 2 arms, 2 screws, and a wrench. The first thing you're going to do when using the Picatinny rail adapter is take the arm included and slide it into the Picatinny rail and then ensure that it's seated correctly on that rail adapter. From there, you'll take an included screw. Make sure that you don't over tighten it because we don't want that screw to strip out. Now we can grab the second arm, insert the screw, and then we can tighten it down. Once the Picatinny rail adapter is successfully mounted, we're going to take our 3-button pressure pad. We're going to line up the tracks on the bottom of the pressure pad to those on the Picatinny rail adapter. And then once we've done that, we're going to apply a little bit of force to make sure that it's seated correctly. And then once it's seated correctly, we're able to interface the cable with the unit itself. With the Raptor Xe mounted and our 3-button pressure pad connected, we're ready to go. With the Raptor Xe mounted on a rifle, we're going to talk about compass calibration, laser alignment, communicating with a kestrel, and then finally we're going to demonstrate the range procedures for the unit itself. To initiate the compass calibration, what we're going to do is place the function switch on M. And once we've done that, we're going to scroll down to settings with the down arrow, and then we'll scroll down once again to compass cal. Once we've selected compass cal, it's going to ask us to rotate the rifle through 3-dimensional planes. With compass calibration complete, the next step that we're going to take for the Raptor Xe is laser alignment. The first thing that we're going to do is take our function switch and move it toward our high power visible laser. With the function switch in visible high, then we'll hit the up arrow. We'll double tap it just to make sure that that laser is sustained firing. Once we've done that, we're going to see where the laser falls on our reticle. Once we get a good idea of that, then we can make our adjustments. It's important to note that there's only one adjustment necessary. Our co-aligned optical bench is going to ensure that all lasers on the unit have been aligned according to that 0. So with the laser alignment complete, now we're going to pair the unit with a kestrel. In order to do this, we're going to return the function switch to the M position. And once there, we're going to scroll down to settings, hit enter, and then we'll scroll down to Bluetooth. Once we've selected Bluetooth, we have the option to disable or enable. We'll select enable. Once we've done that and Bluetooth is active, there's going to be a B visible over the battery power indicator. Our next step is going to be going into the menu of the kestrel. From there, we'll go to Bluetooth, we'll select Device Connect, enter, and then search for the device. At which point the kestrel is going to locate the Raptor Xe unit. We're going to receive the message WXRRH and then a 5-digit numerical code. This is going to be our Raptor Xe. We'll select that, and once that has been paired with our Raptor Xe, that B indicator is going to shift to a K. From there, we'll go into ballistics, manage guns, and receive all. This transfer might take a second, but once it's finished, it's going to read transfer complete. With that done, now we can select the gun that the kestrel has sent to us. We'll enter gun select, user gun 1, and enter. Once we're ready to range and engage a target with the Raptor Xe, we can select any one of our lasers with the function switch, or we can select R. R is not going to allow us to fire any lasers, but it will provide the range and corrections for the Raptor Xe. In order to get the range, a quick tap on the center button is going to give me the range it holds. However, if I hold the center button down, it's going to give me a precise range. Precise ranging increases the dwell time of the LRF to provide an accurate result in challenging conditions, such as sand or fog. The smaller form factor, reduced weight, increased ranging capabilities, and VCSEL laser technology, the Raptor Xe continues the legacy of the Raptor S as the preferred target acquisition and ranging module for special operations forces, law enforcement, and precision shooters worldwide. For more information about the Wilcox RAPTAR Xe and other Wilcox products, click the links below to visit our website. There you can learn about our exciting Xe line, Additionally, subscribe to the channel as we continue to roll out videos detailing all of our innovative and future products.